Today's archives topic is a culmination of other discussions we've all had, and it's also a highly recommended one. I've been asking our listeners, what do you want these last few archives to be? And this is one of the top options. So here goes. It's the historical timeline of continent events. And I will say that I had some help from the Empyrean wiki for this one, because thankfully it already had the basic timeline for this foundation for today's archives. And I can't tell you how helpful that was for this really big episode. All right, so first of all, we're going to use AU and BU for this timeline. AU means after unification and BU means before unification. So here goes. 17 BU, before the Great War, before unification, all of that. And Darna's egg is laid. We don't know when she was left behind by the other dragons in her den, but we can assume the reason was for activating the wards. So now we have the Great War, which happens after that. It's actually unknown exactly when this happened in BU. It was fought over 6 centuries ago, and it ended with the unification of Navar. So the war was the first 6, their forces and allies, versus the enemy General Daramor and his forces. Yes, the allies were the Isle Kingdoms. So we can guess that this was about 1 to 2 BU. Now, lesson 1 BU, right before unification, a specific battle that was pivotal to winning the Great War was the Battle of Genfar. I'm so sorry, I can't pronounce that correctly. This battle was one of the final battles where dragons and griffins fought side by side together against the army of the barons. Now, in response to the Great War, dragons claimed the western lands, which would become known as Navar, griffins the central ones, aka Pormil, and everyone abandoned the barons because the venom sucked it dry of life. So, all right, cool. The Great War was right before unification, so now let's move into 1AU. 1AU is, of course, the unification of Navar. The provinces of Lucerys, Moraine, Elsum, Deaconshire, Tyrrendor, and Chaldir, they all unify to collectively become the Kingdom of Navar. These 6 provinces united under the first wards activating. This included unifying under one common language, which originated from Chaldir. Not by coincidence, Chaldir is also the capital of Navar and where the king resides. The provinces' individual cultures, they were lost. They were essentially forgotten over the generations because part of all unifying together means you also create a big melting pot of one big culture. Tyrrendor was notably the last to swear fealty. I wish I had a date on that, but I don't. So between 1 and 2 AU, it was the migration of the first year. Remember that Navar allotted 1 year to open its borders and allowed those in what is now Pormil to live within the protection of the wards. But they were serious about that 1 year. Afterward, any Pormilian that attempted to cross the borders and get under the ward's protection was turned away. Or killed, as we learned from Samara. Now let's fast forward a while. 233 AU is the beginning of the war with Pormil. This is the start of the 400-plus year war with the Kingdom of Pormil. This is also approximately when all recorded Navarian history dates back to. So we know from the end of Fourth Wing and Violet's realization is that one generation wiped out any mention of Venin or Wyvern, erasing them from history so no one in Navar knows of their existence. In 328 AU is the second Signy incursion. What the heck is that, you ask? It was a 4-day skirmish that resulted in Signisen being absorbed into the Kingdom of Pormil. So Pormil had previously been the 2 provinces, and after this, then it became all 3. And then before 434 AU, we have the Trade Agreement of Resin. It was signed more than 200 years ago from the events of our story. The Trade Agreement of Resin is the exchange of meat and lumber from Navar for the cloth and agriculture within Pormil. This trade happens 4 times a year at the Athbane outpost on the border of Krovla and Tyrrendor. And then around that same year in 434 AU, we have the Second Krovlan Uprising. We know this was also roughly 200 years before Iron Flame's events. Commanding generals of the Riders and commanding general of the army, they used to be separate positions prior to the uprising. Afterward, the the commander of the riders, began commanding all of Navarre's military forces. So they also commanded the scribes, the infantry, and the healers as well, all under Navarre's military. Let's fast forward a few more centuries. We have in 627 AU, it's the beginning of the Tyrrish Rebellion. This rebellion was, of course, led by Fan Ryerson, the head of Orisha and Tyrrendor. Approximately a year later, on July 1st, 628 AU, we have the Battle of Orisha, the infamous battle here, which led to the end of the Tyrrish Rebellion, which led to Reunification Day. The Battle of Orisha was the final battle where Navar defeated Tyrrendor and officially ended the rebellion. Brennan is killed, and resurrected during the battle, and Finn Ryerson was captured by General Sorengale, and an unknown amount of time later, I'm just going to throw out a guess that it's about 2 weeks later, the heads of Tyrrish noble homes who led the rebellion, they were all executed in Caldera, and this included, of course, Finn Ryerson. July 1st was proclaimed Reunification Day and is celebrated throughout Navarre every single year. It's a day to honor the lives lost during the war to save the kingdom from the rebels. That's how it all goes with historical events. I'm going to also pull out just another timeline here that's a lot shorter, but it relates to our characters and our story. So in 618 AU, Violet meets Dane. Yay! In 621 AU, Xaden's mother leaves. Womp womp. In 627 AU, Mira joins the Riders Quadrant, and Brennan has graduated and becomes a lieutenant. In 628 AU, Violet, who's 14, she last sees Brennan prior to the Battle of Orisha, which is going to be on July 1st to 628. Mira is 21 at this time, and she is in her second year at Biscayath. In the summer of 628, Xaden and the other marked ones are sent to foster homes with the aristocratic families who stayed loyal to Navar. We know not all of them were actually loyal to Navar, but at least there was that front that was put on. We talked about that in a previous episode. And then approximately in 629 AU, a year later, Papa Sorengale begins having heart problems. And then in 630 or 631, Papa Sorengale dies. Violet is between 17 and 18 at this time. Mira is somewhere in the neighborhood of 23 or 24. And then in the same year is when Undarna hatches because it's after Violet turns 18. 631 AU is when Xaden enters the Riders Quadrant. And 2 years later, it is when the events of our story began, Fourth Wing. In 633 AU, soon before our story begins in Fourth Wing, in the beginning of that year in January or February, Violet begins training with Major Gilstead for the Riders Quadrant under her mother's orders instead of continuing to train with Markham for the scribehood. And then in mid-July, it is Violet's conscription day and the beginning of our story here. And don't worry, I am not going to keep going with the events of our story because today's episode is already really long and you all know what happens. You can listen to Nicole's battle briefs.
And friendly reminder to all of our dragon riders, you all have access to our outlines, and this one especially I highly recommend checking out. This is our dragon riders on our Patreon, and Lexi has laid this out so freaking beautifully that look at it. Like, it looks so good.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Empyrean Wiki. It's usually just like tiny bit helpful, but this one was like, oh my God, it's just saved me hours of work.
That is one thing I'm looking forward to in the Prithian world, because we have so much on the internet source material that we did not have with Fourth Wing when we first started this podcast.
It's wonderful because it's like good and bad, because it's like when we do these outlines, we don't want to miss anything.
No.
And there's just too much out there to possibly include even like it's going to be like an iceberg where it's like what we're talking about and then it's like all the other stuff underneath. So that'll be that challenge instead.
Oh, I can't wait.